Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Stories for Hope podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and in today's episode, we are going to hear from our founder, Tom Agam, about the first children he ever sponsored, Beatrice and Sophie. Tom and I had sat down together last year to record this story for another project, but I wanted to share it with you today because the impact that sponsorship has on a child is just incredible. And Beatrice and Sophie are a great example of the legacy and ripple effect that comes from sponsorship, and particularly sponsoring a child's education. For those of you joining us for the first time, Stories for Hope is a podcast run by Hope for Kids International, a nonprofit whose mission is to bring hope to children around the world. We have many different programs, including child sponsorship, and we believe that education will break the cycle of poverty. So let's jump right in and listen to the story.
Beatrice was the first child I ever sponsored. I was visiting Uganda. We just started the program. It's like 18 years ago. Beautiful girl, really talented in music and everything. She was leading the worship, and we selected 100 children, and so she was the first one that I sponsored. On the way to the airport, John, her guardian, was driving me, and he said, "Do you realize that Beatrice, the girl you sponsored, if she goes to school now, she'll no longer be able to support her sister Sophie, who is in school and is being helped by Beatrice's business, which was tailoring." And so I realized, and it was, like, well, then how can I help? And then I realized I had to sponsor her sister also. And I asked the question, "What's her name?" And he said, "It's Sophie." And I got all choked up because my daughter Sophie had just been born a few months earlier. So I just felt like, okay, this is easy. I'm sponsoring both of them. And so to watch them over these last 18 years and to be able to walk Beatrice down the aisles recently and to see her at 34 years old, she had this beautiful wedding, and she's an extremely beautiful girl. I'm telling you, it was very emotional for me. Luckily, it was COVID time and I had to be masked, and it covered up a lot of my tears. But it was one of the greatest honors of my life.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, what does it mean to you to be able to sponsor a child from such a young age, all the way through school and their education and all of that, and then to, continue that relationship with them as an adult?
Yeah. Well, to me, they're two incredibly successful women. To watch them over the years as they went through, I sponsored them through high school years. They did very well. They went on to the university, Makara University in Kampala. They both did very well. It was the kind of thing where I saw them grow as young women. I remember at first they were very hard, very serious about studying. And a lot of our kids around the world that haven't had a chance to study, get an education, are very serious about it. And when they're studying, that's all that matters. So I remember one time Beatrice said, "Daddy, can you get us a light bulb so we can study at night?" It's a simple thing. Then later was, "Can we get a laptop?" But they were at the university level, did very well. Both of them started businesses out of their education. Sophie, first of all, I would say probably 10 years ago when she was 20 something, got married, and I also walked her down the aisle, and it's been fun to watch her over the years. We'll just focus on Sophie for a second because her husband is a math teacher at a high school in Uganda. She started a business on the side, named after my wife Sarah. It's Mama Sarah's, and a shop. Worked very hard, ended up hiring employees. She's raised 3 kids so far, and one is just less than a year old, and 2 beautiful daughters that were actually in Beatrice's wedding. But over the years, I've just seen her become more and more independent. Mm-hmm. And I think part of reason I sponsored them in the first place, I saw too young and had that relationship with them over the years, is I just saw these strong women that were really going to make sure they were going to care for their families, and the next generation of their children would probably not need the help that we gave them, but they would be self-sufficient also. So watching Sophie over the years, then seeing her at the wedding, she said, Daddy, I've built a house, which I saw pictures, a beautiful brick house, a big house. Mm-hmm. They have people living with them. They're helping other kids in education. Their daughters are all getting educated. Her business has boomed, so she has employees where she doesn't have to be there. And then I think the thing that really touched me was the leader she's become for women. In the example, she said, I have a small group. Usually when we think of a small group, we think of, 5 or whatever. Right. 40 women that she's mentoring in how to, not only in faith and teaching them biblical principles, but how to run a business.
Wow.
And I just couldn't be more proud of those girls. Beatrice has worked in continuing in tailoring and some other small businesses. And here she is, a very successful person. I told her new husband, you are the luckiest man. And he's like, I know. Because what's happened is, when we met these two girls, they didn't have a chance. I don't think. Because of the grief they had, losing their mom and their dad, and I heard lots of stories there, having a number of other siblings, and then to see them take the gift we gave them of education and just take it seriously and do well. Not just survive, but they thrived. And so to see these young ladies, Sophie was the matron of honor, and to walk Beatrice down the aisle and to see how successful they've become and how self-sufficient, and they no longer ask me for anything. It's all about the impact they're having on other people. So it's like to pay it forward. They're truly doing that.
Talk about a ripple effect.
Yes,
right
yes.
there. From a simple monthly sponsorship that then just turned into all of this in the future and all the impact that they're having on other people now. I mean, that's amazing.
It is. I actually met a young man that was living with Sophie, and he was in medical school. She was housing him. It's her cousin. When Sophie was married 10 years ago, the tradition in Africa is that the dad gets a gift of cows or chickens and goats or whatever. And I used to tease them, how many cows are you worth now? And I remember Sophie saying to me one time on a bus ride, Daddy, with my education, at least 9 cows. I said, well, that probably wouldn't work in America, but yeah. But so at the introduction, which is a beautiful introduction of the two families before they get married, I was presented with 9 cows, and really nice ones. I mean, one of the women I knew there turned to me and said, those are not African cows, those are American cows. I mean, these were nice. So I presented them later, not in the ceremony, but later I gracefully received them, but then I presented them to her older brother, who had been their caretaker, had taken over for the parents, and was just like what happens in their culture, he became their dad. And we had this great relationship. I've always respected him. In fact, I got to, at the wedding reception, I got to stand up and honor him for raising these girls and how great they've turned out. And because my funds were there and encounter was short, but he truly, the boy that's in medical school is his son. And told the story at our table at the reception. My daddy sold the cows and their offspring to pay my way through medical school.
That's amazing.
Is that amazing? I mean, that's the pay it forward. That's that to me was such a success story of what a simple sponsorship started as $1 a day, changed the direction and purpose in life for two little girls, Sophie and Beatrice, and then to see the ripple effect it's had on their family. And even now, the benefit that a cousin of theirs received because of the gift. Well, anyway, it's just incredible.
I love what Tom said there at the end. A simple sponsorship, $1 a day, changed the entire destiny of not only Sophie and Beatrice, but their family as well. Sponsorship isn't just a handout, it's a hand up. It's giving a child an opportunity and letting them change their destiny. Look at everything that Beatrice and Sophie did with their education and how they're now self-sufficient and helping others. That's truly amazing. If this story spoke to your heart and you want to learn more about sponsoring a child, please reach out to us. You can find us at h4ki.org. Thanks again for joining us as we continue to share inspiring stories and celebrate 50 years of ministry. Have a blessed day, everyone.